a technically enhanced, naturally occurring radioactive material.
Yes, sir. I got that in my article to explain it now.
Good. So
you have T-norm coming into your wastewater treatment facility, and what are the levels of radioactivity?
the levels are around 7 picocuries.
Concentrate.
I don't know.
They didn't say that part. Right.
So who's the engineering firm?
I'm sitting here.
Forestry.
Yeah. Pin them down.
That's fine. That's fine with me.
Pin them down.
This is the technical memo, but it just got water poured on.
Why'd you do that?
I just
Mark
got,
Morton with GMS.
I didn't read all this yet, but
Can you give us a ring?
Mark? How you doing? Good to see you. You too.
Okay, so they're looking for
there's
this.
four alternatives.
So, Roy,
You
recovered from Saturday yet?
Yeah.
I heard about the big shindig.
Yeah?
Did you? Why didn't you go?
Why weren't you there? They had openings at that table.
Yeah.
We've been doing
Yeah, the HMO will come off the process as black as your microphone.
So you guys.
So you'll see it when it is. And it's particulate.
In reading the regulations, I saw that they could put in, they could have a pond of their own, discharge it to them, and take care of it themselves.
Yeah, I think so. They,
Yeah.
the dancing on the table didn't start till after the fish course. You know?
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to turn it over to Mike.
Better now, huh?
Westgate.
Very bright.
I'm Jessica McMullen. I'm with PPACG Communications Manager.
Yes, welcome. Jessica, you just came on board
Monday,
Monday.
as of Monday.
We knew you from a different desk.
By the Academy Water and Sanitation District, where they're going to they're going to over to the Dunelm water treatment plant.
Okay, we'll call the meeting of the Water Quality Management Committee to order. This is the October 25th, 2016 meeting. And we do have a quorum. Let's see, our second item on the agenda is Mark Morton, PE, to give us an overview of the Academy Water and Sanitation District proposed lift station. So, Mark, I will turn this over to you.
exhibit here is a big rectangle showing the service area of the Denby water station. This whole service area is basically divided into three separate areas, what we call the east service area and west service area. There's basically a topographic ridge line that runs down north-south from the service area about here to where you ride. And it basically runs as a continental divide, if you will, of the service area. Anything in wastewater that's generated on the east side of that ridge line goes to the east, and anything that's generated on the west side goes to the west. Right now, as the district sits, there's a wastewater treatment facility down towards the southeast corner of the entire service area. Any wastewater generated from the ridge line will flow like everything down to that plant. Any wastewater generated west of that ridge line will flow to the existing lift stations for the use of the service area. Over the ridge line, subsurface area, if you will, is what the flows of the lift station are going to be based on. The lift station will go to a force main, you can see here in red, about 4,300 feet long. We will crest over the top of that ridge line, bring the force main into a gravity flow pipe for a little bit until we can tie into the gravity system. And there we will flow by gravity over to what is right now lift station number 1 site. And there will be a connection there that will allow gravity flow to get into the Denali water collection system. From there, the wastewater is going to go through the Denali collection system out to their Upper Monument Creek Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility, ultimately there for the treatment. At this lift station number 1 site, they currently have an emergency overflow that will gravity into the Denali system. So if there's ever equipment failure, mechanical failure, electrical, loss of electrical power, anything like that, wastewater will automatically flow into the Denali system. That connection is primarily going to be our means of completing this force main project by having that connection continue. So like I say, as the wastewater flows over the ridge line from the force main into our gravity collection system, it will continue over to Denali system. For more of a detailed picture of what we're planning at the wastewater treatment facility site, this is kind of a rough overview of the entire property itself here. You can see the outline of the property. The existing ponds as they sit right now at the wastewater treatment facility, 2 of the 3 ponds are operating. The 3rd pond has been abandoned and it's dry. The lift station itself, we're planning to put kind of toward the south end of that property. We'll have to run some gravity lines inside the wastewater treatment plant property to connect our influent line for the wastewater plant and run all the wastewater down to our lift station wet well. So we'll have a few segments of gravity flow pipeline throughout the site. We'll eventually get down to our wet well, which is going to be a basic manhole construction. From there, we'll pipe it into our dry pit, which is going to be a below-grade concrete, reinforced concrete facility. We will have all of our pumps and controls in that building itself. And then we're also planning on having a separate storage building for the operators to have tools, equipment, spare parts, and that kind of thing. They can store in the building and do whatever kind of work they need to in a closed, temperature-controlled environment. The basic configuration here in terms of wet well to dry pit, the wet well itself is going to be a separate structure. In that structure, we'll plan on using a pressure transducer for level indication in that wet well. That pressure transducer indicating level is going to basically run the pumps based on water level within the structure itself. So we'll have the pumping equipment sitting in the dry well, but it's still running off of the wet well levels. We'll run the pumps in a lead lag situation, so normal operation is as water rises in the wet well, kick the lead pump on, it'll take care of the flows that are coming in and lower the wet well level back down. We'll have an automatic alternator so we can switch pumps. Next cycle, the next lead pump will kick on, and then it'll repeat like that over and over. In the below-grade dry pit, we'll have, like I say, all of the pumps. We'll have piping that we need to in terms of drawing from the wet well into the pumps. We'll have discharge piping with electromagnetic flow meter to do flow measurement out of the lift station. And then from there, we'll run all that force main piping, as you saw in the previous diagram, out through the force main and then eventually up over top of the hill. All three of the structures that we're proposing down here, we're going to keep separate from each other. So the separate wet well is going to be its own environment. The separate dry well is going to be its own environment. And then again, the storage building will be its own environment. Keeping everything separate like that obviously is going to be beneficial in terms of operator safety. You'll have corrosion control issues will be covered without having to have all of our pumps and equipment inside the wet well. Keeping things clean like that, I think, has been much easier for the operators to maintain all of their equipment. In terms of any other ancillary type of facilities out here, we are going to propose to have an overflow pond to collect any wastewater in case of an emergency situation. If we lose some pumps or we lose electrical power, or even if we have pipe breaks or we got to do some maintenance on the pipeline, we'll be able to divert wastewater into that pond, store it there for a period of time. Once whatever issues came up get resolved, pump station comes back online, we'll be able to drain that pond by gravity back into the wet well and just let the pump station continue as normal. Right now, we have sized that overflow pond to take care of 2 days worth of flow. Normally in this type of situation, you tend to see just a 1-day type of thing. For this area, for this potential climate issues that we may have in this area, we chose to do a 2-day storage volume. I think that's going to give the operators the best chance to be able to catch up to whatever issues may occur. The other point is we're building this pond into an existing lagoon, so the majority of the earthwork is already done in there for us. We're just basically adding one more divider berm, if you will, toward the south side to create our overflow pond. With limited cost and limited construction needed to build this pond, it really didn't make sense to try and squeeze that down as tight as we possibly could. We had the area, it wasn't a large expense to create more storage volume for the 2-day capacity range, so we went ahead and did the 2-day capacity in the design. We're also going to give the district a new gravel road coming down through the site. They do have some access road through there right now between the ponds. It looks like at one time it was gravel. It's no longer exactly perfect passable condition in all weather conditions, so we're going to give them a new gravel surfacing there to be sure they can get to the facility, man it when they need to, do their observations, do their checking and equipment checks as they're down there. But that's kind of the gist of what we're doing down at the site. There's not a whole lot of construction, like I say. All it really entails is 3 structures down here and then building that overflow pond. But ultimately what this is going to do is take the wastewater treatment facility out of service and send all of the wastewater over to the Denali system and eventually to their Upper Monument Creek wastewater treatment facility. So regionalizing the wastewater treatment is the ultimate goal of this project. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we're planning on doing and the approaches that we've taken so far. We can certainly discuss any questions you guys have. If there's certain issues you want to talk about, we can go into further detail on that. Go ahead.
Okay, does anyone, one thing, the SARC committee did review this project. We did have a meeting and looked everything over, and we had comments, and those have been sent to all of you, I believe, and to Mark. And Mark did, GMS did reply and respond to all of those comments. This is a perfect 208 type of project. It's taking a wastewater facility offline, one that isn't, it's really not necessary. And if you're familiar with the 208, this is what the 208 of the EPA, of the Clean Water Act is all about, getting rid of wastewater treatment facilities and combining them, or other types of wastewater structures. So anyway, Pete, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, am I correct, Mark, that since our initial meeting with the SARC, your initial presentation, I recall that in that meeting that you were not planning on pressure transducers in the wet well, but that you now are?
Correct. Yes.
Very good. And also, I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, that at that time you were planning on 1 day of emergency storage. Now you're planning on 2.
It's been 2 the whole time.
Has it? Okay,
Yes,
I
it has.
misunderstood.
It's actually, I think,
7 days, isn't it, with the freeboard?
If we actually go in, we're building in 3-foot of freeboard into that pond. If we go into that first foot of freeboard, we gain almost another day, about 0.7, 0.8 day worth of flow. So we're getting up to the 2.7, 2.8 day if we absolutely had to in a crisis situation.
Thank you. Okay, so does anyone have any questions or comments? Go ahead. Oh, Jenny?
Sorry, I wasn't able to review this for the SARC committee. I really apologize. I don't know what's going on.
Well, they did misspell a word somewhere. And
Did
no,
they?
no.
That's my forte, is spelling and grammar, not an engineer. I guess I was just curious, what was the ultimate cause to do this? Was it a nutrient limitation?
Yes, the new nutrient regulations, right now it's a lagoon facility, so the new nutrient regulations are going to push them to a mechanical plant. That's extreme cost and a lot of infrastructure they have to take on, plus the operation and maintenance of a mechanical facility versus a lagoon facility. So they kind of opted for a lift station to basically get out of the treatment business.
Yeah, what was the estimated cost of the wastewater treatment plant? Was it
Oh, gosh, I want to say.
10 million or?
I think it was at least 10 million
Yeah,
total
yeah.
cost, yeah.
Yeah, plus the operation costs and everything else involved in it. And in a district that doesn't really have much of any room for expansion. So that again is why this is so perfect under the EPA's 208. So fits very well.
The SARC had a question on generation, and you're sticking with the fact, with the position that you don't need alternate generation, correct?
Correct. Yes, the comment came up in the SARC meeting to at least consider having a permanent on-site backup generator. We did some more detailed sizing and cost estimates to do that. If we were going to put an on-site generator permanently installed at the facility, natural gas would be the way to go, so we don't have to worry about fuel supplies and managing those and cycling for exercising and all that stuff. With one operator at the district, that may get a little burdensome. So we looked at natural gas. When we looked at that, the cost of just the unit, I think, was $230,000. So for that large of an expense, for a piece of equipment that's going to run,
Every other Wednesday.
For practice?
yeah,
For 5 minutes.
It'll be exercised and not really run to its full potential more than once, maybe twice a year, just estimating. But for that kind of cost, it seemed a little bit too heavy of a burden on the users to put that cost on them just for that type of backup piece of equipment.
Mountain View is your electric provider,
Yes,
and Black Hills is your gas provider?
yes, I think it is Black Hills, yeah. So we are proposing to stay with the pond, just as obviously a lower cost option, but a little bit more of an assurance policy too, because the generator would only cover primary electric outages.
Right.
It wouldn't cover a pipe break, it wouldn't cover plugs in the pipeline or trying to repair a pump, pull a pump, all that kind of stuff. With those scenarios, you can just store in the pond, but if you don't have a pond, you just have a generator, now you gotta figure out what to do with the wastewater.
Okay.
The SARC committee went over it, the generator issue in great detail, and part of the issue with the generator, number one, was cost to put one in. And those of you who have generators at your lift stations or at your plants, you know, I cycle mine once a month, okay, for 20 minutes, and it is nice because I don't have 2.7 days to store. I have 8 hours, basically, to store. And so there's times when I've had power go out for 3 hours or 4 hours, which I have. Having that generator come on is very, very nice, and there's no mess outside. And we discussed the fact that this is going to back up into a pond, then it has to drain from the pond back to the lift station, and so there will be some issues because wastewater was in a contained area on the ground, right? But the other problem, this facility is so large that a natural gas generator may not work for it. And they may have to, to get the amount of, and I'm not an electrical engineer, but to get the amount of amperage and horsepower and whatnot to pump this all the way up to that ridge, that divide, it may require diesel generation, which would be even more expensive and,
Well, have an ongoing cost that's higher.
and as you all know, with diesels, you have fuel issues. The fuel goes bad, in the wintertime it gels. There could be worse issues having the diesel generator sitting there than having a generator there. So anyway, the SARC went over this in great detail. So to poor Mark's, he put up with us. Yeah, you missed out on that. Yeah, but that's what we're about. That's what we're supposed to do, right? We look at everything and thoroughly deliberate over it. So anyway, but any other comments? Jerry knows this facility very well.
Necessary.
For the natural gas, we were looking at a 475 kW generator. And unfortunately, with natural gas, you don't get the energy boom for the buck, so natural gas generators tend to be much larger than diesel generators to start with. So that's where the great expense really came in, by having to size that generator up for the natural gas fuel supply.
Who will the operator work for? Is it going to be a Denali operator? Or?
It'll be Academy Water and Sanitation District. They've got one operator right now that does the water and wastewater systems, and he will continue to operate the lift station once the wastewater plant goes out of service. And they'll still handle their whole collection system too, so.
Oh, okay.
Their entire collection system is still gonna be in place. It's just that we're changing the bottom end, if you will, from the wastewater treatment plant to the lift station.
Any other questions? I have a couple of things. Let's see. The dry well, is that a confined space?
Technically, no.
Okay.
If there happens to be spills, obviously there's issues to deal with in terms of the environment and entry
Right,
and
right.
ventilation and all that. But no, in a dry pit, dry situation, no.
Okay, all right. Okay.
And we do plan to have full ventilation on it
Right,
anyways,
right.
but yes.
Explosion-proof, I take it? Or
Not explosive.
because you're not worried about any waste getting in there.
That's right.
Separate, so.
Right.
And the other one was, are you going to have backup mechanical floats?
Yes.
Okay,
we will.
all right, all
Yeah,
right.
we'll
So,
have
yeah.
two systems basically in that wet well.
Right,
The primary will be the transducer.
Right,
Yep.
okay, very good. Thanks for coming. Any other comments or discussion, or, okay, then I would call for a vote to approve this project and move it forward to the PPACG,
CAC,
to the CAC, whatever, but
Citizens
that-
Advisory Committee.
that we get,
But we're also recommending it to the board.
and to the board, right.
Through the CAC. It does have
Right.
to go through the CAC, but we are
So the Water
recommending.
Quality Management Committee, is there a motion to approve this project for a lift station at Academy
So
Water and
moved.
Sanitation? Okay, Dave made the motion. Is there a second?
Third.
So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those who oppose say nay. None opposed. It's unanimous. Very good. Thank you very much, Mark.
Job.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is to discuss membership in the SARC and the Water Quality Management Committee and how to increase these with quality professionals, time permitting. Jenny and I, we're not really quality professionals.
I'll just say, folks, I'm sure you don't want to stay here longer than you need to either. But Bethany is going to release the junkyard chihuahuas at 2:30. We have to be out of here at 2:30.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I guess the issue, at the SARC committee, there's 4 of us. And by the way, Mike McCarthy was back.
Oh.
Yeah, he's working part-time for the county, and he says he really missed Jenny, yeah. And,
You missed that too?
well, he retired, and now he's working
I knew I
part-time.
hadn't seen him, but I didn't realize he had retired.
Oh, it was good to see Mike, you know, he's such a good guy.
He's a temporary part-time, so he's
Temporary.
got a 6-month clock ticking.
Right.
So I'm frantically picking his brain in every way.
What, why?
Yeah.
He's taking his place.
Right,
I mean,
yes.
It's so innocent.
Nice.
he's retired. I know he's sort of a workaholic, sort of, but
Yeah,
very dedicated.
yeah. He just had so much historical knowledge, we just couldn't let that go, and so he was gracious enough to come back and help us clean up a few things. So.
Well, good.
Well, anyway, so do we have anybody in the room who's a PE? Oh, good, good.
Oh,
Well,
well,
Should have ducked.
there you go.
all the
would
places
be-
I chose to sit.
It would be nice to have a PE on the SARC. We had one in Jim
Schultz.
Schultz
Schultz, yeah.
up at Woodland Park for years. And the nice thing was, you know, I'm an administrator is what I am, right? And a manager. I do know a lot about wastewater now, of course, and lift stations and how wastewater plants work. But one of the things Jim was able to do, he could look at plans that were submitted and actually do the calculations for pumps, pump curves, for other things within the wastewater plant, you know, as far as, you know, the BOD loading compared to the amount of air being put into a facility, that type. He could see quickly into that stuff, where for me, I have to read it slowly, look at it, and, so it's a little bit.
Mike, let me just tell you, I have done that stuff in my career.
Yes, yeah.
In fact, the last wastewater treatment plant that I actually designed and built was in the basement, the third basement of the Jinmao Tower in Shanghai. So I've done some really weird,
Whatever.
yeah, some really weird wastewater projects, but I'm primarily water and have been for 10 years.
That,
And-
we're not, hold on, we're not picky, please. But I would ask, would you like to be on the SARC, or am I putting you on the spot?
Do they meet occasionally as this does?
Yes.
On necessity of application?
Yes.
But if, you know, is there a formal appointment or volunteer or?
No.
Oh.
No.
I was afraid of that. Oh,
It's, you say you're willing, and then Pete.
Pete, put
when
me
I-
on the list and I
Hey.
will.
Good, yay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Would anyone else like to be on the SARC? Dave? May have a lot of these radioactive discharges coming along.
That's right.
someday.
You can put me on the list.
Hey.
Okay, good.
Oh, good.
So, that's great, that's really good.
Also, FYI, Kip Wiley from Woodland Park just sent me a note before this meeting, counting him in on the SARC.
Oh, good,
Yeah.
good. So, isn't that great, Jenny? It's, it'll be nice, because when we get an applicant, then sometimes, if there's just the 4 of us, and sometimes it's hard to schedule that if we're on vacations or whatnot, and we want to give the applicant a fair chance. The SARC committee, it's Site Application Review Committee. So what happens is we get an application through Pete, we go through it, and we make sure that the state application is filled out right, all the boxes that are supposed to be filled out are filled out, that there's a signature on the application, that there's an operator and responsible charge for the, so there's just little details that we look through. And then we look at the site itself to see if it complies with the EPA's 208 plan, right? In other words, would it be better for them to go talk to Colorado Springs Utilities or some other wastewater plant that may be a mile away from them and make an agreement with them rather than putting another wastewater plant on a stream, okay? Or the same with lift stations or interceptors, that type of thing. So we go through the plans, and then the applicant and the engineer come to that meeting, and we go through all of our thoughts that we've got, you know, from looking over that application, spelling errors even, you know, little things that we think could trip them up in their process, okay? Or questions like about a generator. Where's the generator on this? So that's what it's about. So, and hopefully, after going through the SARC, when it comes to the Water Quality Management Committee meeting, people at this committee will know that it's been looked over in great detail with a fine-tooth comb. And, but then ultimately you have your questions, and then this committee actually has the authority to approve it or disapprove it. The SARC doesn't have that. All we can do is make comments. We don't approve or disapprove, but we try to encourage the applicant, you know, to do something like the transducers, right? And I don't know if all of you are familiar with those in wastewater lift stations, but they're a miracle.
And he picked that up as a result
Yeah.
of our discussion.
Right, yeah.
And
'cause
they realized a little bit of cost for that versus the problems it's going to save them. So that was a success. It was a win-win mainly for the residents, but
Oh, yeah,
for
but for
everybody.
the operator, and
And
I'm sure most of you have dealt with floats in your career, and transducers, when we switched over to them, it's been almost 2 years now, and I haven't had a call, right? Except for other things, a power outage or so, but not because of float issues, right? And where I was getting, one a month or whatever, floats getting greasy and that type of thing, so. Or just a failure of a float. The floats fail. Jenny?
I think, I've always thought that we also would look at site applications for compliance with Regulation 22. Maybe not in huge detail, but that's the regulation that defines design and engineering criteria for wastewater facilities. It's not a tiny regulation, and there's actually like 4 parts to it. There's
Right.
the regs, then the guidance, then aren't there 4 parts?
Then the
there's
standards.
the design criteria. I mean, not that, I think a familiarity with that and the steps that an applicant would need to go through to comply with the regulation are helpful so that they don't take something to the state and say, well, here, and the state's like, you didn't do most of this stuff, some of the basic requirements are.
Right, and we want, that's right, because over time, we become the experts in these applications, right? So we know what the pitfalls are, and we're an engineering firm. It may be their first wastewater plant or their first lift station that they're dealing with. It may even be their 5th, but the last time they did one was 10 years ago. So it just, more eyes on something is very helpful. But yes, that's right, Jenny, you're correct. Pete?
Let me ask, what is the distinction then between the SARC and this committee? Why have a SARC?
The SARC is a review, Site Application Review Committee. It's just for that initial look at the project and the application, and to help the applicant and their engineering firm to get to the next step. Typically, what happens is, and what should happen under the 208 plan, is that it would go to the local water quality management association, like the Lower Fountain, we're Upper Monument, and they take a look at the project, and whatever objections they have, or comments, good comments or whatever, they talk to the applicant and the engineer about that, and they may tweak their plans, and then it goes to the SARC. The SARC takes a broader look from around the region at it, and then it comes to the Water Quality Control Committee, and there's an even bigger look at it, but this is the committee that has final
The actual recommendation. power.
recommendation, right. And actually, the local 208 associations do have a recommendation or a denial. They can say, no, we don't want this, or yes, we do. So, but the SARC is just review, that's all.
Mike, I could see these things 3 times.
Yeah,
But the SARC is a technical committee.
yes, it's a
So that's-
technical committee,
Much
has
more
no,
technical.
no real
You
power.
know, a few meetings ago, we had one where they were doing a YMCA camp or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And I talked to the engineer, and it didn't really go to the SARC. It just kind of appeared here.
It had been to the SARC.
Yeah, it had.
Had it?
Yeah. It had.
And, well, I made some comments on it.
Yes, and those were great comments, yeah.
Yeah, and I got a little hostile at first, but I was going, guys, there's cheaper ways to deal with the wastewater you're dealing with, much cheaper ways to do it. And, yeah, I think that's really important at the SARC.
Right.
To give them some other ideas, because that was a case where their alternatives investigation was piss poor.
Yeah. So you were familiar with that area. I mean, could they have gone down to, what is that, Glen Ellen or whatever, or to another place and laid a pipeline along 285
No,
down
they
to?
could have put a system in that wasn't going to take an operator of that level of knowledge,
Right.
in SVR, to operate the system, and taking their maintenance costs down 2/3
Right.
by just making some changes.
Right.
Okay. But at this point, now that YMCA camp is going to be saddled with a pretty expensive mechanical system to operate.
Right.
And it came down to, and the engineer, no offense, was plumb ignorant of some of the other things that were
Right.
available out there. He was rather focused on that mechanical
On that particular
treatment
plant.
They
process.
they didn't even look into your recommendations?
They did. Said they wouldn't be able to use it there, but they did take the recommendation, and we've been in communication since. Okay. But he mistook me for a salesman. which I-
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. It would be good, not a criticism. I learned about your conversation with Mr. Martinson, Nathan Martinson, from him.
Right.
Anyway, I didn't know that your comments, that your recommendation was not considered to your satisfaction. And I wonder if I could have handled that better, or we could have
No,
handled that better.
It was. It was considered to my satisfaction. What I think the SARC needs to be able to do is really look at those alternatives, because they were three very basic alternatives, and they rapidly grabbed for what they understood. In my
Okay.
opinion.
Okay, well, we'll be glad to have you on
And
the
that's,
SARC.
and that's where the SARC needs to come in and be able to say,
And that's,
what are the conditions? What can this camp really afford?
'Cause
What are
they-
you recommending? Okay,
'Cause
what are
this
the
ca-
maintenance costs long-term? Those are some of the things that we should be telling this committee. Hey, this plant's going to be so expensive, the camp's going to go out of business.
right, yeah.
Because this committee recommended that project.
Had to.
But the thing is that it's not, if we, at the SARC, we can recommend things. And even at this committee, we can say, well, it'd be better if you did it this way, but ultimately, the applicant, if they filled out their application, they have a PE that's designed something, it's not doing any harm, right?
Right.
It's their money, they can
Exactly
build
correct.
the system that they want to. And if all of us recall from our training, a wastewater plant or a lift station or a collection system, there's an engineer that designs it, but there's operators involved too that are talking with those engineers, and they may want something, and so,
Yeah, this is, and it really was, the operator that was maintaining that camp, the level of operator they was and his experience level, he wouldn't have been able to be a whole lot of help to the engineer, and their presentation made that really clear. I mean, they haven't even looked at the raw water conditions and what that was going to do to the plant. Do you have enough alkalinity to make this process work? Questions they weren't able to answer, okay?
Okay.
The second thing was, they'd already gotten their approval from PPACG before they were keen, and so the SARC.
Something got out of sequence.
Yeah. Okay, so I didn't feel it was my place to try and slow anything down.
Well,
And
and
it's not our function.
yeah, it's not a good idea to recommend, I think, certain avenues. I mean, again, if what they're proposing is viable and would work, it's ultimately the choice. I mean, I think it's important to give perspective, but not say, we think you should do it this way.
But that
Right.
would be good at the SARC level, before they get too far down this process.
That's exactly right.
Right.
That's what the SARC is about. Hey,
Yes.
let's broaden your horizons and your options.
And you're going to join us in the SARC.
Yes.
That's what I said, yeah.
Did I say that?
But,
I'm sorry, Jenny. I
Right.
didn't-
No, that's okay. I'm just thinking of like in my pre-treatment days where, an industry has a a problem, they have wastewater that needs to be treated, and an industrial pretreatment person can't say, well, you should use this kind of system because, so-and-so used it and it worked, and it may not work for them. So you don't want to be caught in the place of saying, oh, this system's great, you should use this.
But
You should say, "There's all
you should
these
be able to say,
Right.
your alternatives analysis is very, very
Right.
limited.
Have you thought about
Have you
this?
gotten out there and taken a look around a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fair statement to make.
Well, Jenny
especially
can
that
tell
case.
you back with the lower fountain, the lower fountain plant that.
The dueling plants, or?
What's that?
The dueling plants?
Yeah.
I
And-
wasn't
and-
involved.
and Colorado Springs, on the SARC and on this committee here, I gave Colorado Springs and Fountain a very hard time trying to get them to work out a deal where that water would go to Colorado Springs, that wastewater would go to Colorado Springs, because that's the 208, right? But they tried. They had several meetings, Colorado Springs and Fountain, and they really tried to hammer out some deal, but they just couldn't come together. So we can't force them. We can only encourage those things. And but they did. They finally, though, they ended up with another plant on
Right.
the stream. So
But not two plants next to each other,
no, but
which was what the plan at one point.
right. Yeah. Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So. And I think we also figured out some moving sludge across the highway, or I can't remember what that one's. Maybe I'm mixing my wastewater.
That happened several years before that.
Anyway, so yeah.
Send it to Pueblo, no problem.
So yeah, we're not.
Yeah, it would have been another pipeline
Yeah.
under the creek in the highway.
Yeah.
Or over the river and through the.
And Jenny, you said it really well. I like the way you said that.
What did I
Well,
do?
that just because we like one particular product or
Right.
engineer or whatever,
Yeah.
we can't tell them, no, you can't do that. If
Right.
it's within the scope of the regulations. But
Right.
as Dave's saying, we can try to point them in the right direction.
And say, we think you might want to consider this alternative, but. I
No,
would
just
be
broaden your
open.
horizons a little
Yeah.
bit. And that's all I asked them to do.
Yeah.
They came back and I had some phone conversations, and they said, will this work? And I said, oh, heck, yeah, it'll work.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not going to get me to say anything bad about what you have recommended. I'm not going to do that.
The ROI will kill you.
It will work, okay? But there's other ways that the operator in that specific situation is going to be able to do. Now, what the camp's going to have to do is go out and hire a contract operator. They're going to have to run him up and down 285. It's going to cost the camp a fortune.
Yeah.
Okay. If they broaden their horizons a bit, there were other options.
Right.
I recall in their alternatives analysis, one of them was, the one they chose, an on-site wastewater treatment plant, and this is it. Whereas if, let's say at the SARC level, we had said, okay, now let's look at that. Are there any alternative types of wastewater treatment plants?
Exactly. That's what I was going to. They needed to broaden their horizons on it. There's just a little bit about myself. I've been doing this since 1978. I operated for the city of Woodland Park when they had lagoons, designed by the predecessor to GMS. Okay, so I go back a little ways, and I've done projects in Victor, Colorado, of course, with Fair Play, stuff with Jerry. As a matter of fact, Jerry and I would probably, if he was still here, be dancing outside in the parking lot that Academy Water and Sand finally got their stuff together and consolidated. But no, it was a recommendation he and I made on the better portion of 15 years ago to that district.
Yeah. I
Okay.
remember you worked there, and I was.
That's right, okay.
Well, he had
So-
terrible problems meeting.
Oh, yeah, it was horrible at the time that he and I were making those recommendations. But, the point is that I have seen and operated a multiplicity of different types of systems, more so than most operators that would sit at this table. So I'll be handy on the SARC. I'll gladly.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Much appreciated.
Yes, you're a good guy.
Now, as far as members of the Water Quality Management Control Committee, is that what we wait? Yeah.
Yes.
Let's seems like we have more people in the room, and I don't know if that's because of the Arkansas River, AFCURE, that we're getting less people to these meetings. But, because it's generally, this room is pretty, it used to be pretty full.
Well, sometimes they would do them together,
Yes.
Right.
and then I think you get a bigger turnout. But it's hard to meet all the
There's so many,
separate meetings if you don't have the personnel to do it. That's my problem.
and it would make that
Have me or close the office, so I have to pick and choose.
it would make that meeting day pretty long. I mean, we'd
Yeah,
have to
that's
add
right.
on, because we just have
Yeah, I
so
don't
many
think you
things to
probably
talk
do
about
it.
in AFCUR, and then, so
They decided
come at
not
9 a.m.
to
and
do that
stay.
anymore because of that, but I'm just saying, I
Yeah.
think maybe that's when it seems so big,
Mhm.
is when we were,
Before AFCUR,
yeah.
yeah.
So, we take it seriously enough that Ron Woolsey is my alternate for this, and you've seen him here occasionally, and neither one of us are sewerage guys. We're both water guys, but it's important that Fountain City, the municipality, not the district, is here too. Yeah, that's what you guys say.
This should be a slogan.
Okay, Pete, are you happy with that?
Thank you, I'm good, thank you all, especially to those of you that have stepped up. Dave?
So I guess we took care of number 6, we discussed the role of the SARC and the Water Quality Management Committee. It's not the Control Committee, it's Water Quality Management Committee.
Did I say control?
No, I did.
Mike, another opportunity would be to concurrently schedule this with either the Upper Monument or the Lower Fountain.
Yeah, that's true, we could do that. And I don't know what happened. Something fell through the cracks on the Upper Monument on this one here.
We never seen
Yeah, we can't figure out, Pete and I tried to figure out what happened there, but.
Now, question, is that PPAC?
No,
I'll
that's
step
not-
up to
it's
the
not-
plate, is that my job to
No.
make sure that happens?
Well,
Those are independent. They are not through
but
PPACG.
their first, an applicant's contact was with PPACG.
Right.
PPACG would tell them, you need to go to Lower Fountain, or you need to go to Upper Monument, or whoever, at the local, first local level of the 208. So, then to the SARC, then to this committee. So, it's,
So, yes.
I don't think it's something you drop, it's just something that, because we had discussed it.
So going forward,
Want to make sure.
whoever this folks, if somebody comes to me and says, I have a project, I need to say, okay, we're going to put this in our docket today or tomorrow. You need to also contact the upper or the middle or the lower.
Right, right.
And here's the person, here's the email. Call me if you have trouble reaching them. Does that work?
And I think there may be a signature line on this application from,
Okay.
or from the Upper Monument, that somebody
Okay.
may have to sign the application.
Okay, so for this project, should I do that? Should I tell Mark he needs to be in touch?
Well, you were gonna look into that to see if,
All right.
I think on the application, Jenny, do you recall, there are signature lines at the bottom, and,
Not all of them have to be filled out.
City and town,
Yeah.
local health, 208 planning agency.
It's us.
That's
that
us.
do this.
That's
Like,
us.
Sometimes,
Other state or federal.
yeah.
Okay, so no.
Other basin water quality authority. That's watershed association, that's the final one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that may be,
And the type name is Robert Hull Jr.
yeah, so, okay, that makes sense, because Robert is the chairman of the Upper
Right.
Monument, so he needs to sign that.
All right, so I will then say, hey, Mark, if you didn't know, you need to be in touch with these folks and go through their, meet with them too.
Yeah, we should get that done. I don't think it's gonna be any it's probably gonna be a very quick,
And Academy's part of that.
Academy's part of it, Robert Hall is the knowledge, so we're all aware of it. Anyway.
And signatures have come fast.
The funky one is the city or town, because we've, I've submitted some site application amendments or whatever, and, who do you submit that to with the city? And if you try to submit it to regional building, they're kind of like, what is this? They don't know what to do with it. They don't know what to review it for. They have no idea. So I I don't think all the signatures are required, I can't remember. I think it says something like that in Reg 22 for the guidance, or, but that one specifically is like, nobody knows what to do with stuff like this.
And we don't want the state kicking something back because.
That's the biggest.
Well, in that regard, outside of this watershed, what if it's in Park County, like the Park County?
Well, that one, because they're within the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, that project, for whatever, in that part of Park
Yes.
County, they had to come to this meeting.
Even though they flow the other direction.
Right, and I don't know who the, North Platte, or South Platte, what is that? The North Fork of the South Platte.
Yeah.
Management Committee is up there. I have no idea. And I think they said they looked for one, and
It used to be Dr. Cog, wasn't it?
it was Dr. Cog. Yeah. Well, that was their main committee, like this. So.
Right, and they
But.
got rid of their water quality Cog people, so.
Okay. All right. I need to dive into that, so when people come to me, I say, okay, you also need to do this. Okay.
And they should do that before it comes to the SARC and before it comes to this meeting.
Why?
Because it's in that part of the watershed.
Yes.
Like this one is up on the upper monument. So whatever concerns we have up there, we're the first ones to look at that and see and to say, yeah, this is a good project, or hey, this has got some issues.
Would those committees send to me an email or a report or something like that?
Yes.
Minutes?
They do.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, then you get something saying that committee approved it, or wants it, they're fine with it, or here are the recommendations from that committee. You would get that too, so, because in this case, you'd have seen, and I hate calling them recommendations, because what they're.
Well, I'll work on that.
But,
Issues that we discussed.
yeah, comments that we would have at the upper monument,
Okay.
commented on the generator issue, definitely.
Right.
And that would have been seen, then it would have been seen by the SARC, and it's seen by this committee, but everybody knows it was well deliberated.
Okay. I think in the bylaws of this committee, I think it says we're going to review their stuff within 45 days.
Yeah.
That means nothing can go wrong. And I think I need to tell applicants, okay, that's 45 days from when I hear from these associations, not from when you send me an email.
That's correct.
Because I'm not in control of it until I can run with it. And I can't really run with it till I hear from the appropriate association.
There have been times that the lower has met, reviewed it on a Monday, and I've come down here on the Tuesday, and they've been standing up,
That's
so.
right.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm relatively new at this, so thanks for bearing with me, and please help me throw rocks, whatever works, to get my attention, and I'll do it.
Okay, let's see, any other issues or items of interest at this time? We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Drive safely. Good job.
You're off to Beulah now?
Yeah, got a water board meeting or two next.
How are you involved in so many different things? Are you
Stupidity? No, I
Can't say no.
People will just keep asking.
yeah, that's right.
Before you run away, I know you need to run away, I was going to find the reason I brought this just in case you asked this question. So this is the Forest Grant technical letter that they just presented at the Running Board of Trustees meeting. This is the section about the beach miles. It's sort of dry now. I don't see any, you started to ask, well, what would the concentration be? I don't see anything like that. I spilled water on it. Yes, I
No, I
did.
mean, they were talking about.
Oh, that's from me and Jim. We're conspiring again.